and welcome back to Thunderquack Perfect 10, the podcast where we explore the pop culture masterpieces we love. I'm your host, Michael Cohen. You might be asking yourself, what exactly is a perfect 10? Simply put, a perfect 10 is a piece of pop culture media we love unconditionally. This isn't about review scores, it's about pure joy, because everything around here is a 10 out of 10 to us. Hold on to your arsenal because we're jumping headfirst into the over-the-top action-adventure world of Ratchet and Clank to talk about the PS5 Tour de Force Rift Apart with Ty Black from Wit and Folly. Ty, welcome back.
Yay! Good to be back talking about something totally different.
Yes, very, very different for you on Perfect 10, where we have previously talked exclusively about Heath Ledger films.
Yeah.
But also, yeah, just getting into video games, and I very specifically getting into Ratchet and Clank, which I mean, I think I said this on the last episode when you when I was sort of previewing everybody that you were going to be on the next one. I was like, when you brought this, I was surprised but absolutely delighted, because Ratchet and
Mhm.
Clank is one of my like top 5 video game franchises. I absolutely love this entire franchise. So you said Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, and I was like, yes, absolutely. Like, let's do that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I was really excited, 'cause I play a lot of video games, like, I'm a big gamer. I just kinda, like, don't talk about it as much on social media and whatnot because, as a woman, like, you kinda just play and you don't really, interact with the people who play because it's a kind of a weird, uh, fandom, that's always not as friendly for women. But I've been getting, being on Blue Sky and everything, I've been a little bit more, like, open about it, like, talking about it on Blue Sky, and connecting with other women about the games that I'm playing, and it's being more fun to talk about now. So yeah, I'm, like, so excited to talk about this one. It's such a unique one, and I don't know if you said you like the franchise. I definitely played the games on PlayStation when I was, like, younger, but I never quite connected with, like, the character or the story or anything like that. I really liked the guns, I really liked the nuts and bolts and stuff, but I really, really like this game for so many reasons we're gonna talk about, that this is really when I started connecting with, like, the story and the characters, so
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it was when it hit the PS3, that it started to take on um a little bit more of my headspace. Like I never had a PlayStation or a PlayStation 2 sort of when they were current consoles. Crystal got a PlayStation 2 sort of like after, a little bit after the fact, or maybe towards the end of the life cycle of that one. I guess it was before the PS3 came out, but not long. And so I came to the Ratchet series like very, very, very late. But I don't even remember. I don't even remember how it came about. I think maybe that it was just like, I think maybe it just came with the PlayStation that she bought. And so and she bought it as a DVD player. Like, she needed a DVD player, and I was like, well, if you're gonna spend money on a DVD player, it was like a DVD player is $150. The PlayStation 2 Slim is like 200. So just get that. um, and so she did, and then while she would be doing her homework and studying for university, I would play video games in her room next to her. It was like when we first started dating. So yeah, like, and I started playing the Ratchet games at that point, but it was on the PS3 that like they actually started to have, I think, a little bit more mature stories. Even like, it never really gets that mature, but they started to put a little bit more investment into the actual writing of it, as opposed to just jokes and plot. There started to be actual character development and stuff like that.
yeah.
But yeah, like, Into the Nexus, which is the one that precedes this one, and then Rift Apart, I think are actually two of the best games that Insomniac has ever done. And
Mhm.
previously, Joe and I did an entire episode on the 3 Spider-Man games that have been released so far by Insomniac, which are also like just unparalleled video games, like so good. and especially in terms of storytelling. I so Insomniac just they're one of my favorite developers. Full
Mhm,
stop. They're right at the top with like Naughty Dog and like Nintendo first party and stuff like that. So
mhm.
yeah, but the other aspect of this is is just like Ratchet and Clank themselves and James Arnold Taylor as Ratchet. Like that's a connection for me that is hard to deny. He is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I just love James Arnold Taylor. Everything that he does is always so good. He brings so much to it. So yeah, I've been in love with these characters since like the early 2000s. it's
Yeah,
it's it's been a long journey for me, but yeah.
that's great.
Well, before we get too much further into it, let me just give the primer on exactly what Ratchet and Clank is, because I think actually of a lot of the topics that we've done, this might be one of the ones, because it is like a console exclusive character. Although now you can play them on PC, but for a long time, Ratchet was locked on the PlayStation, and so if you never had a PlayStation, you might not be familiar with the franchise. So, and especially with this game in particular. So let me just get everybody up to speed. Released in 2021 for the PlayStation 5, Insomniac Games' most recent addition to the Ratchet and Clank series, Rift Apart, is a third person action shooter, most notable for its use of the PS5's incredible processing power, allowing for real time, near instantaneous travel between different areas, planets, and even dimensions. The ninth installment in the mainline Ratchet and Clank series follows our eponymous heroic duo as they're flung into an alternate universe by the Dimensionator, a device capable of creating portals between dimensions. Upon entering this new dimension, they're soon entangled in a struggle against the evil Emperor Nefarious, a more menacing and effective variant of their own villain, Dr. Nefarious, as well as their cross dimensional counterparts, Rivet and Kit. Known for its action packed mayhem, punctuated with a healthy dose of wit and absurdity, Rift Apart stands out in the series as a true visual spectacle, rivaling some animated feature films. So stock up on some ammo crates, because it's time to lock and load as we discuss Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. I yeah, let's just start with the visuals on this game, because when I booted it up to replay it ahead of this recording, and I did a full playthrough of the story. I I I was blown away at how almost 4 years later, it still is one of the best looking games on the PlayStation 5.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's really, really, really good. It's so pretty, like, every single frame is something that, some people say is like, "Do I really like video games, or do I just like walking around and looking at stuff?"
mhm,
And that's, like, what this game felt like, even though games typically like this one, like, with really, really colorful scenes and, like, high contrast and different types of guns and all of that, typically, they don't tend to be the prettiest games, but this one has all of that, and it's insane to look at.
yeah, they pulled out all the stops on this one as really, I think, a showcase for the PlayStation 5, because it was
Mhm,
pretty early in the like the launch window of that console. It didn't come out with the console, but it came out pretty soon after the release.
mhm.
So I yeah, it or maybe it did come out with the no, because the console dropped in like November of 2020, didn't it? Maybe.
Oh god,
I
I don't know. I
I
just got
think
my
so.
I just got my PlayStation for the first time in the summer, I think, or was it was probably earlier. I think I got it last year. So,
Mm.
I'm just now catching up on all these PlayStation games I haven't had a PlayStation since, like, the 2nd one. So, yeah, so I'm playing catch up here.
Yeah, I am definitely a PlayStation fanboy. The games that are exclusive to the PlayStation console are amongst my favorites. The
Mhm,
Uncharted series, Ratchet and Clank, the Spider-Man games. I have much more reason to be in the PlayStation ecosystem than I do
mm.
in the Microsoft one. As a matter of fact, like I could care less about 99% of the Microsoft exclusives. Halo
Interesting.
and Gears of War, like they do not do it for me. They're too
Mm,
they're too broy. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like they're too yeah. It's that's fine if that's what people are into, but it's not for me. So yeah, I had the PlayStation 5 on launch, and I had this game. I mean, I played this game the literal minute that it was available, like pre-ordered and all of that stuff. Because yeah, I was really looking forward to it, and it did not disappoint. I mean, it is every bit a Ratchet and Clank game. I and all of the additional stuff that they put into this one, new
Mhm,
characters and the just sort of the refinement of it.
mhm.
It's I think it is the best one in the series.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
really love it, but I'm gonna let you talk about it for a bit.
Oh, yeah. Well, if we're talking about the technical aspects, just to start, it definitely one of the things that, obviously we mentioned the fact that it looks really pretty. I think one of the reasons that it does that is because, like, every frame has so much depth to it. Like, you can stand on one part of, the map that you're on currently, and you can look out in the distance and you can see so much, and there's so many layers, and that's one of the ways in which, uh being in a game feels so immersive is when you have so much in the frame, without it looking overcrowded, without it look liking it like it collapses on itself, like having that depth. It's just very, very impressive looking. But like another thing that as soon as I started playing it, like in the first scene where you have control of Ratchet and you hit something and it explodes into a bunch of nuts and bolts, I was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, it's so nostalgic for me, like, to have that immediately, like, that crunchy sound, when you hit something and then, like, the clink and clank of the bolts. It just and then the kinda like that little like, there's a little kind of a sparkly noise in there as well, and it feels good. Like, it feels good, it feels nostalgic, and it kind of, like, has, like a pretty feeling to it. I don't know how to describe it, but yeah, it's good.
I think one of the things that they did so masterfully in this one is that it is the Ratchet and Clank series are they're video games, right? Like they're
Mhm,
straight up video games, and there's no there's kind of no um shame in it. Whereas I think some of the other modern games that people get excited about, they kind of have this, especially narrative stuff like story based stuff, all has like this chip on its shoulder of like we're
mhm.
just as good as movies,
Yes. They
right?
want to be
Like
taken seriously as an art.
yeah, like Final Fantasy, The Last of Us, I you know, even Uncharted and like a lot of these things it's like no, these are real stories.
Mhm.
Whereas with Ratchet and Clank, because it is in this cartoon world, they embrace the fact that like, hey, none of this really makes any sense. Like the bolts flying out of everything and being the currency that you use to buy weapons, and the fact that there are weapon vendors every 10 minutes, right? Like it's all absurd,
Yeah.
but you like it's a video game, guys. Like, and it's a video game that knows it's a video game, that references the fact that it's a video game without breaking the fourth wall, but still, you know, like things like the pixelator shotgun in this game where it's like you turn characters into 8-bit versions, right?
Yep.
Like it all of that stuff I think allows them to focus in on the polish instead of trying to do this sort of prestige like, you
Mhm.
know, illusion that you're playing a movie, right?
Yeah. But it still maintains, like, the prestige in other ways. It maintains, like, the actual gameplay itself is, like, some of the best gameplay I've ever played on any console or PC or anything. Like, it's exceptional. And I will say this because you brought up, an being an art form versus just, really having a good time. My favorite video game always surprises people. Like, my favorite game of all time is actually Sunset Overdrive, and I know you're not, like, a Microsoft person, so you might not have played it, but it's similar in this regard. It feels, it's got goofy guns and you get to run around and you get to like kind of, customize your character and it's just it's just silly fun, but those are the games that I those are the games that I, really stick with me the most for some reason, like, and it's not necessarily and, I'm a big story person, like, I love finding themes and I love, angst and I love stories and all of that, um, but the games that I remember are the ones that are just the most fun, so
Yeah.
go figure. And
Well,
you
I
can't
mean,
have both.
yeah, Sunset Overdrive is also an Insomniac Games game.
What?
Yeah. It's also Insomniac. It was their foray into non PlayStation exclusive titles. So I have not played Sunset Overdrive, but I know that I would love it. Because
I
yeah,
had
it was
I had no idea it was in well, you know what? I knew it was Insomniac, but I don't usually pay attention,
yeah,
so I
yeah.
guess I just forgot, but that's crazy. Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, like it is. It's in the same. It's absolutely in the same zone as Ratchet and Clank, right?
Yeah,
With the over the top action, mayhem, ridiculous weapons, and that sort of thing.
love it.
Um, yeah, that was one thing that I was always a little bit jealous of with people who had the Xbox because that was Xbox One, which yeah,
Yeah,
I never had an Xbox One. I bought a 360 I like late in the console cycle for the PS3 and the 360 so that I could play the Mass Effect games. I
yeah,
sort of like right before Mass Effect 3 came out so I could finish playing through Mass Effect 1, which I had played a bunch of when I had a roommate who had an Xbox 360, and then play Mass Effect 2 because everybody talked about it like so glowingly, right? And I really
mhm.
wanted to play 3 when it came out. So I had the 360 for that. And then that was like literally, it was that and the Kinect. Like, so we played, Connect Disneyland Adventures, and there was a Connect Star Wars game with a ridiculous dance game in it, and that was like that console was like a party console. It was only for when people came over, and we would move the coffee table and push the couch back and and
Yep.
dance like goofballs in our living room. But I with the Xbox One, Sunset Overdrive was the only game that I was ever like, I really want to play that, but I just never did. And
Yeah,
now it's kind of I don't know. It's probably too late. I
yeah,
guess I could scrounge up an Xbox One. Actually, you know what? I could probably my PC could probably handle Sunset Overdrive now. So
yeah.
if it's available for PC, maybe I should check that out. But
Oh, it still
uh,
holds up. It's
yeah,
still I replay it all the time. It's great.
um that's the thing. That's kind of what I was getting at with Ratchet and Clank is that like they're such this is a term that I use all the time, especially when Joe and I are talking about video games. It's like such a video game ass video game.
Yeah.
Like it you can add so much depth and so much polish to your environments when you know that your players are really they are on rails. It At a certain point the game starts to open up and you have more open world type stuff, but really it's if you look at the maps, which I platinumed this game, so I've looked at the maps quite a lot. When you look at them, it is a series of corridors, right?
Mhm.
And that means that they can tailor the experience and as a result you get that extra level of polish because they know generally where you're going to be looking and what
Yep.
needs to be high fidelity as opposed to what's off in the distance. So Insomniac is just really really good at at the game design component of it
Mhm.
that allows them to then focus in on making sure that prettiness that you kind of referenced
Yeah.
is just in every frame of the game. No matter where you look, you're seeing something interesting, something cool. And then yeah, I mean like sound design on top of it, and then characters and performance. It just kind of all comes together. And then with this one in particular, they really really went all out with story, and and cranked that up, which was nice because Into the Nexus was good. It had a really good story, but Rift Apart has a lot more going on. You also have more protagonists, so it I think it allows you to have a little bit more. And you know, 9 games in with Ratchet and Clank, I think we've kind of almost said everything that we need to say about these two guys. So
Yeah.
having Rivet and Kit come in as a way of almost reframing Ratchet and Clank and their relationship,
Mhm.
I think was a really smart way to to make again a ninth game in the mainline series, because there are also spin-offs, like there are also side games that aren't part of the main story,
Mhm.
that exist. So there's a lot of Ratchet games. Not all
Yeah.
of them are great. The spin-offs are kind of All for One is not a fun game, but yeah. Um, I Speaking of Rivet and Kit, because I'm sure that you have a lot to talk about in there, because that's I think where the story really is on this one.
Yeah.
Would you say is that what kind of like makes this one stand out compared to the other ones? Is the
Oh, yeah.
introduction of those characters?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I always liked Ratchet and Clank, and I always liked, I mean, they're fun games and it's fun stories, like you said, but, like, I think that Rivet is a more interesting and compelling character, like, hands down, easily. They gave her an interesting backstory. They made her relationship with Kit very, conflicted, and they made her fit into Ratchet and Clank's story in a way that they could help her. And, you know, but it wasn't easy. Like it was like, Ratchet, it kind of pulled out Ratchet's own fears and like all of that. Um, which I do want to talk more about, but I think that generally I saw, I've seen some people online talk about like, "Oh, this wasn't a Ratchet and Clank game," and they're like mad about it. And I'm like,
Hmm.
"Well, I mean, the game literally starts with Rivet. Like she's the first one introduced. She's not the first one you play as, but she's the first introduced in the story, and it really ends up through the entire storyline it becomes Rivet's game, and I think that was such a nice surprise because, you know, obviously as a woman, you're like, you do want more female characters in games like this because it's, there's just not that many still. But also, like I said, like she's more compelling. She's got like, the arm and that was a big mystery. Like when you start out, like you're like, okay, well, why is her arm like that? And why is she not with her companion robot? And all these questions that you have, and then they're all answered at the end. And it just, to me, it felt a next a next step for the franchise, and a very like obvious next step. Like they should be pulling in new characters that relate to different people. So it yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I think it's just sort of the nature of it. In the last, decade or so, that when you introduce female characters uh, into an environment that is traditionally a male environment, that you get this nonsense, right? Like it
Yeah.
just, I think like these boys have been trained to respond in this way.
Yes.
It's such a obviously to me it's such an obnoxious thing, because it's like the game plays exactly the same no matter which one you are. So if you're here for the video game, like the video game is the same. It's really not that big of a deal. And we have had many stories with Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like at this point, yeah, like let's branch it out a little bit. Let's bring in something new. And then the way that they did it with giving us this multiverse alternate take on those two characters, and as you go through, and it's like it's very obvious from the marketing material before you even play the game that Rivet and Kit are alternate reality versions of Ratchet and Clank, right? Like they're the
Right.
girl versions of those characters. But the the sort of like subtle, not subtle things that they did to make that clear, I'm actually a huge fan of. Like, I really love that they reverse the color palette on the characters, right? Because
Right.
Ratchet is orange and Clank is gray. So Rivet is gray and Kit is yellow
Yellow.
orange, right?
Yep.
And so they actually end up like sort of split and reversed for most of the game, where it's like Ratchet and Kit are together, and Rivet and Clank are together. But then when you get to the end of the game, towards the end of the game, and those characters start to like they come back together as a team, and you start to see them working together, and then there's all of the drama of it and everything
Mhm.
with the story reveals. It's I really love it because it just it to me it as I said before, like it's such a great way of reinforcing and retelling the story of Ratchet and Clank,
Yeah.
right? When we see these alternate, the other way that it could have gone had Clank not, I ended up on the path that he ends up on, intersecting with Ratchet, and then they become this duo. This is what happens if the two of them are separate. Like they're
Mhm.
not they're not nearly as effective individually as they are together, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the whole journey by the end of it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that part of it. Like I really, especially replaying it and focusing in on the story, because I just put it on like baby mode, right? Like I and it was like halfway through the playthrough that I was like, I haven't taken any damage, and then I realized, oh, when you put it on the lowest setting, you don't take damage. You just don't take damage. I was like, okay, cool. It is making for a much quicker playthrough, so that's
Yeah.
great. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's it allowed me to really focus in on the story and the character stuff.
Mhm.
And this time around, really like trying to pull it apart and get into that.
Mhm.
And there's a lot there. There's a lot there in this one, way more than in previous games.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So you wanna talk about, like, kinda go through just a little bit of the story? I mean, there's a lot that happens, so there's no way we can get through all of it, but
yeah. We don't need to do a beat for beat
no.
retelling or anything. But yeah, there's some big pieces that I think are interesting to talk about. So yeah, go for it.
Yeah, exactly, exactly, yeah. Yeah, this kinda bounces off of what we were just talking about too, about, the fact that Ratchet and Clank are, instantly, like, introduced in this game as coming out of retirement in a way. Like, it's kind of that trope of, like, they're being celebrated and their life is perfect, and it kind of reminds me of, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie when, like, the
Yeah.
Power Rangers in the very beginning are, like, being celebrated as the heroes of the town and of the world, and they're coming down and they're, skydiving from the airplane, and then all of a sudden, it takes a turn, you know, and then Ooze is there to, like, mess everything up. It's very much like that. They are on the top of the world, they have everything they could ever want, and then Ratchet finally has a way to find the other Lombaxes, which are, like, trapped in another dimension, and then everything goes wrong, and it throws everything out of whack. Um, and that's just such a cute way to introduce it, because also then, on the other side of things, you have Rivet and Kit being introduced as kind of like these mysterious characters, and something's happened in their past, like they're not, like you said, they're not friends like they should be together, and they should be working together, but they're not. Um, and I liked how in this other dimension that Rivet is from, that you have, like, the Emperor, and she's a part of the Resistance. So, she's already introduced as someone who's similar but very different from Ratchet, and that she's very focused on, she's gonna be alone in this fight, and she's gonna take down the Emperor on her own, and she's got the resources she needs, she doesn't need any help, like, that kinda thing. Um, which is just really It was cool. You could see the tropes, like, fitting together. You could see kind of the yin yang, between the 4 of them kind of setting into place, like, right from the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, the story just, like, goes so quick right at the start,
Yeah.
right? The parade to, the Dimensionator, and then ending up on this other in this other world, and introducing Emperor Nefarious, and or just the concept, I guess, of Emperor Nefarious at the beginning, but then splitting up our duo, and then getting into the whole Rivet components of it. It just yeah, it does a really good job of getting you in as quickly as possible. I And also, I think it just, like, shaking it up, and having the characters, um as you know, that's the title of the game, is Rift Apart, right?
Mhm.
That's the whole point, is that Ratchet and Clank are not together for this one. It just it sets Ratchet up to actually have something to do. Because the intro of the game is almost, like, pointed in the sense of, like, how many times can we save the galaxy, right?
Yep,
We've done it so many times, it's boring at this point. Like, they're bored by it, which is really the writers saying to us, like, we know it would be boring if we just had Nefarious, or, if Quark double crossed them again, or, like, there are only so many things they can do. There are only so many new villains that you can introduce, and crank up the threat meter each time, and make it a bigger and bigger thing. So let's, instead of that, like, let's toss them into a completely new environment. Let's introduce some new characters,
yep.
and most importantly, let's actually give them, like, a villain, although familiar, one that is actually threatening, right? Because
Yeah.
Nefarious is a joke at the point that you get to this one.
Mhm.
Especially if you've played All for One, like, the character is no longer threatening. But then Emperor Nefarious has done the things that Doctor Nefarious was incapable of pulling off, right?
Yep.
And is a much more, like, sort of classic video game villain in that way. So
Yeah,
seeing all that is really cool.
I liked that concept of he always like, Doctor Nefarious always loses except in the one dimension where he wins.
Hmm.
So, that was, like, the that was the kind of felt like the last resort to pull out, as a writer from your back pocket and say,
Mhm.
"Okay, well, Doctor Nefarious isn't that great of a villain, and we can't really do much more with him, but what if there was one dimension where he always wins?" And so that's gonna be, like that's the you know, that's the main conflict that's happening in this one in terms of what the villain is trying to do. But I also found it interesting that 'cause there was a lot of stuff I didn't remember from the earlier games, and I had to look it up because I was like, "Really? That was a thing?" Like, because I was so much younger when I played them, but that Doctor Nefarious ultimately wants to wipe out organic life in favor of robotic or, tech life,
Mhm.
um, which I didn't remember that being a thing, but that was so interesting to me because with Ratchet being like a, mechanic and them being kind of this, the Lombax species, and having the kind of connections to a more natural life, a more, life kind of in an organic kind of way. It was really interesting, and I started to piece that together, when I was playing this one. I was like, "Oh, okay, so this is you have Ratchet, who is someone who uses his environment and he uses his smarts and like the mechanical stuff and he has like the cool guns, but then he also goes and he uses his environment and you have like the mounts and you have the different places that you visit. There are different things in the environment, in the natural environment,
Mhm.
that he will use and in a interesting way, and that's interesting because it kinda pulls in both of the, mechanical versus not mechanical, mechanical versus organic, and life versus, death ultimately. So that was really interesting, and I thought that was kind of cool for the game makers to play with those themes in the gameplay itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it totally does. Yeah, the there's like a balance with Ratchet as a character, right? Where he is this creature, right? He's this alien cat dog person thing, a Lombax, and then Clank being a robot, right? Like,
Right.
and sort of there's that juxtaposition of the two of them. And Nefarious as a bad guy, I think, has always been interesting because of that, because he is like he's pro robot, and and you know, you would think that there would end up being more sort of push and pull with Clank on that, but I like I think one of the most interesting components of this game is that in the previous ones, robots are not really um citizens in that world, right? Like it's
Mhm.
like Ratchet's prime dimension is very organic. There's lots of different, alien beings and that sort of thing. There are no humans in the games. There are some near humans, but if you pay attention, Quark has three fingers. There are no actual human beings in the game. Um, but I you then you come into this nefarious dimension, and everywhere you go, the majority of citizens are actually robots. So
Right.
that's where you see like that actual, like, and they never call it out, like they never actually say it, but to your point, when you go back and you think about the older games, like that's what Nefarious was after, was he wanted he wanted, artificial life forms to be the ones on top.
Mhm.
And so in this dimension where he wins, that's the case, and a lot of the organic beings have been enslaved, or are just sort of like, like lower caste. And but it never the game doesn't like the game has no political agenda with any of that stuff. It never
Mhm.
like stops and goes like, look at this injustice. It's just there. Like it's just part
Yeah.
of the world.
Mhm.
And it's just environmental storytelling. And I think like that's really it's that's only there for people like us that are like playing all of the games and then like sitting at it and looking and going like, what's going on here, right? And digging deeper. But it is there, which means that they
Yeah.
thought about it.
Oh,
Right.
yeah. It's definitely subversive, and it actually is an environmental message. Like,
Mhm.
it's saying, like, you need to take care of your environment, and even though these even though, like, this tech is cool, and even though, like, Clank is cool and, like, and necessary and, like, treated as a human in that sense, he's necessary, he's a friend, he's a person in a way, you still need to take care of, like, the organic beings and, uh, the plants and the animals and all that. It's definitely a environmental message for sure. And an environmental message in a non-political sense, in that it's saying that, we have to
Mhm.
take care of the world in which we live on. But yeah, so that's a really fun theme. Um, and I did wanna talk about, Savali, the planet Savali,
Mhm.
because I think that there's some cool stuff going on with it. So, basically, Ratchet has to go to the interdimensional archives, um, and right away, like, my Star Wars, senses are tingling, um, and he finds basically out on this planet, there's, like, an ancient Lombax outpost, so it kinda gets into Ratchet's brain of, like, he's looking for his species, and they were here at some point, and the people that live there now are monks. They also call them acolytes, which I thought was really funny. Um, and they're being led by Gary, their prophet or leader. And they are this was such a cool thing to me, because as someone who, like, really likes Star Wars and analyzes Star Wars, as soon as I saw the monks, I was like, Oh, these are Jedi. These are
Yeah.
absolutely Jedi. But also they are of the same species as the thugs or the goons for less that are, um, the main goons in the story that you fight. And the thugs, the thugs or goons for less guys are kind of all about like their muscles and their physical prowess. And so this group of people who have decided to live on Savali as monks, they have decided to take up a different lifestyle and live peacefully and meditate and reach for like different, they have different desires. So that was really, really interesting. And visually, it just checks off all the, like, it tickles something in my brain. It just checks off all my boxes, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I I also really love that, inexplicably, like, literally inexplicably, they do not explain it, that Gary, the leader of these monks, is the son of the plumber, who
Yes.
is, the plumber is, the closest thing that the Ratchet and Clank series has to a deity
Yep.
figure, right? Like, the plumber is, um, I like, metaphorically speaking, I he's the developers, right?
Yeah.
Like, he often comes into the story at the point where they need a Deus Ex Machina,
Mhm.
and so, like, in the first game, he'll show up and just be like, you should do this," it's like, and just like pushes the characters in the right direction, but is quite literally the voice of the developer telling the player, go do this next.
Yeah.
And so Gary being his son, it's like, it doesn't make any sense, right? Because obviously, like they're not the same species, but also, like, the game being like, why are you thinking about it? Like,
Yeah.
don't think about it, because when it's first sort of mentioned, that's the case, Clank is like, oh, okay, and then just moves on. Like, he's just like, he just accepts it. He doesn't question it. He doesn't ask, like, wait, how does that work? Yeah, how is your, father from another dimension? And it's like, well, because they're they it doesn't matter to the plumber. The plumber can go anywhere he wants,
Mm.
because he's a god. So I yeah, and that's just it. That is, I feel like it's really, like, the best example of the absurdist humor that is in the Ratchet and Clank games, because there is, like, a thoughtfulness to it, but it is also just ridiculous. Like, there's a
Mhm.
very, like, Tao kind of aspect to that, of it being so important to the story, yet not important at all.
Yep.
It is, like, everything about the plumber in all of the games is contradictory and nonsensical, and yet he is, when he gets name dropped in this one, there's no, like, wait, who are you talking about? Like, if you've played the other games, you're like, oh, okay, so we're just acknowledging now that the plumber is a deity figure, that he can cross dimensions and do whatever
Mhm.
he wants. Like, he can break rules, and there's no consequence for him. Cool, 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 cool. Yeah, awesome, rad. Like, they just let it happen,
Yeah.
and I love that, because it just, yeah, to me, it exemplifies the Ratchet and Clank series in the way that it's like, listen, we're here to play a video game, guys, and
Yeah.
we're gonna tell some fun stories. But it's about, getting you to the next world where you can blow some more stuff up, and then, we'll have some character moments along the way. Don't worry about it. It's not that serious, you know.
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
actually, I think it's so with Gary, and it would be really, really interesting if they made him the bad guy in the next game.
mm,
I don't know, I don't know if they would do something like that. I don't know if that would be too left field, but, after seeing kind of everything that happened on Savali, and then and think in the end credits, um they show Ratchet and Rivet going back to Savali and kind of helping them repair after the attack, and
mhm.
they bring back, what it was they took from the archives and everything, and, um, I was like, that seems like a place where they would like, that would be important going forward." Um, and just with the everything that it represents with, like, the faction breaking off and deciding to live a more peaceful life, I was like, "That would be so cool and so Star Wars if Gary, like, turned to the dark side." But
Yeah.
yeah, that's a personal headcanon of mine. So, this is probably my biggest thing about Rivet and Ratchet that I can't stop thinking about, aside from the Savali stuff is so cool, but, like, I cannot stop thinking about how they are Loki and Sylvie.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because, I mean, not only, like, how they're, uh, dimensional twins or whatever, they're the same person from a different dimension, but they act like that. Like, Loki is, he's done his thing. He's kind of been through all of his trials and tribulations, and
Mhm.
when he meets Sylvie, like, Sylvie has a completely different past. It's much more, tumultuous, it's much more conflicted. She's much more conflicted. She's, like, wanting to be on her own. She doesn't need anyone to help her. Like, it's literally what's happening with Rivet and Ratchet. Um, and they have, like, this really beautiful argument, Ratchet and Rivet in Rift Apart, where they talk about their fears and guilt and what they want in life, and they call each other out on those fears. So Rivet says, to Ratchet, like, "You're like, why are you so scared to meet the Lombaxes? Like, why are you dragging your feet about this and all that?" And calling out that he feels like he is not good enough. He's not good enough to live up to his legacy and all of that. And
Mhm.
he calls out Rivet for, not helping Kit, not being there for Kit. And Rivet's like, "No, I'm justified for my fears. You're not justified in fearing what you fear, but I'm justified." Because then we find out that, you know, of what Kit actually is and what she did. Um, and it's such a good moment. It's, like, such a good, like, heavy emotional moment, and I'm screaming at the television, "Just kiss already," because it's so good. It's so good.
Yeah, it's I never drew that parallel before, but you pointed out, and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, no, it is the same thing. It's the same
Mhm.
thing. Yeah, they're dimensional twins. They're both kind of like, yeah, in their individual stories, the last of their kind, right? And
Yeah.
so there's the um sort of like a doomed fate, sort of component to both of their stories. I that when they come together, it's like you kind of just, yeah, you kind of just want them together, right?
Yes, yes.
Um,
And
I
totally
yeah.
fine with it being a friendship and, found family or whatever, and they would but it's so beautiful that they would actually complete each other in such a beautiful way with, Ratchet wanting to find more of his kind, and this kind of being the solution he didn't really think about because it's that, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, moment in his story where he decides, well, this could be a possible end where he decides that he has family with Rivet and that's all he needs, and he doesn't need to find the other Lombaxes or whatever. But doubt that would happen. But it is a thread that they have laid down that's so interesting to follow because also Rivet, her thing is that she pushes down her desires and she pushes people away. So finding Ratchet and him teaching her to, you know, to hold on to other people and to rely on people and to, help Kit. Um, if they could do that together, if they could, lean on each other ultimately, like, again, that would just be them synthesizing within themselves and for each other together, all of that. So it could be a beautiful love story. It could.
Yeah, it's a thing that the series has always kind of shied away from,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I think is interesting because there have been other characters introduced. I think it's in the second one is Going Commando, I think, and in that one I think they introduce Angela, and
Right.
she looks Lombax ish, but she's not a Lombax. And then I can't remember the name of the character from Into the Nexus, but she shows up um, in the credits. I Because she was such an integral part of the last story, and then she's just not in this game, which is one of those things because it's like because they go to another dimension, right? But then at the end, you see her again. She's the she looks kind of human-ish. She's like kind of an elf, like purple elf,
Right.
from the previous game. And there was a little like with both of those characters, there's like a little bit of a thing with Ratchet, but never fully. Like they never fully explore any of that, and they really just focus in on Ratchet and Clank and their relationship.
Yeah,
Um,
there's this thing that, male video game characters get, and it drives me nuts. It's that a woman character comes in, and they flirt in weird ways, like, they kinda bicker, they kind of, like, she kind of shows off in a way that kinda makes him, his jaw drop, and then that never develops into anything. And whenever I see characters like that, it drives me nuts because I know it's never gonna be an explicitly romantic thing. They're just there as, you know, just to make it seem like the male character can have whoever he wants, can have the pretty girl, like, it's just there for that reason, and I did read that when they were developing Rivet, she was supposed to be more sexualized. And they ended up taking away a lot of that at the last minute. I don't know how much of that is true, but if it is true, then it would mean that their relationship is more, um, is, like, deeper than with the other, women characters. It means something different. So, I just find that interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of that it was coming from like I think there was original like early concept art, and I think that some of that early concept art was leaning into that Angela character from previous games, who
Mhm,
is more sexualized character. Like Ratchet does not have human proportions, right? Like Ratchet has like these big feet and sort of like spindly limbs and giant head and all that. Like he's very much a cartoon character.
mhm.
But then Angela was like, she basically had Ratchet's head on a sexy lady body, right? Still cartoony, and I mean we're talking PS2 graphics, so there's a limit
Yeah.
to what I'm talking about. But um, there's a component in that game where like she shows up and he's kind of like you know Roger Rabbit hubba hubba sort
Yes.
of thing.
Yes.
Um, and which is what you're talking about, right? Is
Yes.
that like that sort of the role that female characters played in those games back in the day? Because this is we are talking about a game from like 20 years ago.
Yep.
Video games have evolved a lot, not enough, but a lot since then. And I so I think that I recall there being sort of like a conversation of like the original intent was to sort of like draw a parallel with that character of like well maybe
Right.
she was a Lombax, and this is what female Lombaxes look like compared to male Lombaxes. We've also I I can't remember what the PS3 game was called, but that first one that was on the PS3, and then into the Nexus, we get more of the Lombax stuff, and when we do, especially in Into the Nexus, we see more Lombaxes, and we see that they're that Ratchet is not like a he's not like the best example. That they're like his father is like buff and kind of a little bit more of like a square jaw type of guy, just visually. So there's there's more variety in the design of the Lombaxes than just sort of like Ratchet
Mhm.
implies. Um, I so I think they were just like exploring that early on, but then
Mhm.
I think one of the main things that ends up happening is that it's like, well, we're changing back and forth between these two characters. Their silhouettes need to be the same,
Yeah.
right? And when you play the finished game, it's like you get different armor pieces and stuff, which is one of my favorite things that you get to unlock in the game in these games is when you get different outfits. That's just one of my favorite things in video games in general.
Me too.
I just love playing dress up with these characters. They're just dolls to me, but I they're the armor is the same across the two of them. Like
Yeah.
it there are some slight differences. Like they basically kind of like squash and stretch certain things in order to imply more masculine, more feminine. But Ratchet to begin with is quite androgynous. He's not really masculine. He's also not feminine. So Rivet is only pushed like 2 degrees in that
Mhm.
direction as if, like from my perspective in terms of character design when they don't have that if you just turn all of their armor off and they just you just put them in their default outfits it's much more noticeable
Mhm.
but when you use the custom stuff it's like yeah they're the same they're the same
Yeah.
thing and I think that that's quite intentional because it is you don't want to switch to Rivet and all of a sudden she's taller and leaner and but the hitbox is the same like
Yeah.
they would have had to have differentiated their gameplay more and I think that there was a decision at a certain point that their gameplay would be identical
Mhm.
and I think that probably motivated them to move back towards like okay like let's make her
Mhm.
proportionally basically the same
Yeah.
as Ratchet.
I find that interesting because I don't know, like, a ton about, game development, but I would have to imagine that when you change gameplay like that, then, the story has to change in certain respects as well.
Mhm.
Um, you know, even just little things, but little things add up, and then, all of a sudden you have to change a lot, which would explain some of the story, towards the end, is a little rushed feeling, and I think I did read that they actually ended up changing a lot at the last minute, um, and some people were frustrated by that, like, some people were mad about, this how the story, uh, kinda where it went and how it ended in the game, and it didn't bother me at all 'cause I definitely feel like it was an introduction to Rivet and Kit, and I think that going forward, there's gonna be a lot more, to round out those edges a little bit more that happened in this one, um, but yeah, so I do wonder about those things because that's really interesting.
Yeah, that I think that's one of the biggest differences in terms of storytelling and how it comes about in video games versus something like a television show or a film, right? Where
Mhm.
things are very fixed. Because of the interactive elements, you end up making decisions that have these cascading effects that that end up changing story elements and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, when I look at the way that this story resolves and where our characters are at the end, I actually because I see where it's rushed. Like I see where you get to the fifth act of this, and all of a sudden it's like okay, cool, we're just fighting the bad guy, right? And you're just like kind of tossed right into it, and everybody comes together very very quickly at the end, and it feels like there's a beat missing.
Yeah.
It feels like there was supposed to be a longer separation for Rivet and Kit before they come back together. If if you just play the story, it it feels very fast.
Mm.
The thing is that you're not expected to just play the story on a game like this. You're expected to get to that sort of point of no return and then go and clear out the rest of the game, right?
Mm.
You're supposed to like level up your weapons, finish out the arena, I get upgrades and stuff like that. Go searching for gold bolts and that sort of thing. Like that's the pattern, sort of like the rhythm of the Ratchet and Clank games as they got more and more complex, right? Is that they
Yeah.
they would give you this point in the game where they would go like, it's very clear that you're about to go face the bad guy. This is the point where you want to go and clean up the map.
Yeah, that's
And
what I did. I
yeah,
was like, "There's 3 guns that I still haven't gotten yet. Okay, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna finish the arena, and then I'm gonna do the rest of
yeah,
the game."
yeah. You don't want to go into the final battle without the rhino. Like that's just like that's if you do, then you haven't been playing Ratchet and Clank games. You Yeah, you need to go find. I don't remember how it was in this one because when I played my new game plus, I already had it. So, but I think that there's like pieces scattered and you have to put it together.
Yeah,
I so yeah, like yeah, you want to do that stuff before you finish off the story, and if you do, then there's a whole chunk where Kit is gone and Rivet is on her own, in the way that at the beginning of the game Ratchet was by himself, right? Because Ratchet
okay.
is alone for I think the first two worlds that he's on.
Yep,
And he's just got the hover boots instead of using the propeller pack
right.
with Clank. Um, and so they invert that towards the end, right? And so I like the developer's expectation is that that's what you're gonna do. But if you did just like burn through the story and then went back and explored stuff afterwards, then yeah, I feel like that would feel a little bit rushed. But I
Yeah,
don't remember it feeling rushed when I played the first time. It felt rushed when I played on this playthrough because I was rushing, because I was like pushing through the story. So I was like,
yeah,
oh, I thought that there was more in here, and then I thought about it and went like, there was. You were leveling up weapons and doing nonsense in the world, and
yeah,
finding gold bolts and stuff like that. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Right.
yeah,
um but I also look at it and go like, you've introduced these characters, sort of like you were saying earlier. um I don't want to tie everything up in a nice bow at the end with
right.
Rivet and Kit. I want them to have somewhere to go in the next story, right? Like we don't really know what the next Ratchet and Clank game is. Insomniac hasn't talked about it right now. The next thing that's up for them is the Wolverine game, and so that's where they're kind of focused. And I think that there might be another Spider-Man game in development. There's something else as well that they're working on. That's another Marvel one. Oh, maybe it's. Uh, I had it and then I lost it. It was right there. There's another Marvel game that they're working on. That is sort of like in this world that they're building off of the Spider-Man game. Um, so we don't know anything about the next Ratchet and Clank game. I think all they've said is that there is one coming, and I most likely it'll be a PS6 launch title.
Ah,
Because
okay.
we're getting there, right? we're getting
Yeah.
we're getting to that point. Nintendo's about to release their console, which means that this console cycle is about to end, because they're always behind. So I think within the next year or so we'll get the early rumblings of the PlayStation 6, and then Microsoft will quickly be like, we're going to put out a new Microsoft Xbox, and we're going to call this one just Xbox. And everybody's going to be like, that's the dumbest name you guys have come up with yet. And they're like, just wait till the next one. I that has nothing to do with whether or not the Xbox is a good console. That's me criticizing Microsoft and their marketing. It's just awful.
Yeah,
Yeah, the Xbox Series X, Series S. It's like, what
yep.
are these consoles called? It's the Xbox Series generation. It's so dumb. Just put a number. Just put a number, guys. It's super easy. Sony figured it out. Nintendo's following suit with the Switch. Although it should have been the Super Nintendo Switch, but that's fine. I but I want the next Ratchet and Clank game to not be called Ratchet and Clank. Like it should have come
Mm,
out much quicker after this, and it should have been Rivet and Kit,
yeah.
right? It should have been
I
their
agree.
game.
I
But
completely agree.
and I'm sure that if you talked to Insomniac back then, that was their plan. I'm sure that that was their plan,
Yeah.
and then they put the game out, and people reacted the way that they did, and like every other uh, corporate entity that has done this in the last 10 to 15 years, they got cold feet. And I mean, like I can't blame them to a certain degree. Because this is speculation, so you can't get mad at a company for a thing that maybe they did. But also like they want to keep making games. They want to keep their people employed, and there's a there's a component right now that's just out there because of the way that shareholder value is prized over everything else, that I people talking on the internet has so much effect on the economy.
Mhm,
It's insane that it's irresponsible to make certain decisions.
mhm.
And it sucks that that's where we're at right now, but it is in the year 2025. It is where we're at. So
Yeah,
I it's similar to the decisions that Disney and Warner Brothers and a lot of these companies are making.
amazing, yeah.
I don't agree with it, but I have to accept it because it's just the world that we're living in right now.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
and
then I just bring
that's
it up on podcasts and hope that it eventually changes. But
yeah, and honestly, like, that's why I think it's so important to, like, talk about the things that we love and the things that we value and, what we like in these stories and even in the gameplay, even in, like, the technical stuff. It's like, I think it's important to own the message, and it's important to, like, get that voice out there that's saying the things that we're saying versus what other people are saying,
mhm,
regardless of how many eyes or ears or whatever you have on it, because in the face of what is happening right now,
mhm,
it's kind of the only thing that we can do. So yeah, I love even if my headcanons are not true, even if they are strictly headcanon, um, I'm gonna keep talking about what I like in stories like this, and I like Rivet and Kit, and I would love to see more of them, and I would love to see more of the relationship blossom between Rivet and Ratchet. I think that would be lovely.
yeah, yeah. I think it would be great. I think it's a natural place for the series to evolve. I
Mhm.
don't know if they'll do it in
Do
that
it.
direction. But to me, it's like I look at it and it's about time. It's about time that Ratchet has some sort of a romantic storyline.
Yeah.
But I could also see them very much sidelining Ratchet and Clank if they were going to focus on Rivet and Kit. Like in the world where they make that game, you have Ratchet and Clank go off with the Dimensionator to try and find the Lombaxes, while Rivet and Kit have to end up, dealing with some local
Yeah.
threat to the galaxy, right? And so you get your story with the two of them, and then you can like have them work out all of their stuff and all of the angst of the
The past.
you blew my arm off and all of
Yeah.
that stuff, and the two of them coming together in that way. But
Yeah, I think
I
that's the most likely for sure.
yeah,
Which is still super fun, and I would like that. I mean, you know, that's what fan fiction is for.
yeah. Well, it feels to me like the Lombax thread is one that they are just never going to resolve, because the
Yeah,
second that they resolve it, the story kind of ends.
right.
They've built it into this part of Ratchet's lore to the degree that like that is kind of his end game, is like finding the Lombaxes. And once he does, a like then Ratchet's kind of like he's achieved the thing that he wanted to achieve. But B, they've they've made the Lombaxes into such a powerful society that it's like once they enter the chat, it's done, right? Like
Yeah,
no one can do anything. Like the Lombaxes have all of this technology. The only thing that you could do is that he finds them, and when he finds them, they've basically been destroyed, right?
yeah,
And I don't think that that's what they would want to do. I think that like the number of times that they have implied that the Lombaxes are somewhere, right? Like that they are that they've just they're essentially hiding. And they're hiding mostly because they've become so powerful that if anybody gets a hold of their technology, it would do what the Dimensionator almost does in this game, which is destroy the entire multiverse, right? So
right,
the Lombaxes are kind of like uh, found some pocket dimension somewhere where they're hidden. They've intentionally hidden themselves so that they can continue their way of life without disrupting the rest of the universe. Uh, so yeah, bringing them in at that point is like, okay, so is Ratchet just going to be with them, or are we going to have a conflict that almost destroys the entire multiverse again, right?
right.
And yeah, there's I don't think that there's a way to resolve that doesn't just like end Ratchet's story.
Yeah,
But I'll also say I think that that's also fine. Like I think it's also fine to have Ratchet's story come to a close at a certain point, because you've introduced other characters now. You can do something else. The Ratchet and Clank world is so big, and they have tried multiple times to get some of these other characters front and center, like Quark, um and but it's never taken, it's never worked. They always just end up going back to that main duo. And I think like the James Arnold Taylor David K aspect of it is a big component of that. I think those two actors just have such a good back and forth, and they're so beloved at this point by gamers that it's like, yeah, it's almost a crutch.
mm.
It's to me it's like actually maybe it's time for to retire them. Maybe it's time to just like send them through a portal that closes behind them and we never see them again.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, then they have to keep the names though, right? Like, that's I think that's what they're that's the ultimate problem, yeah, they have to keep the names alive
Yeah,
because that's the product.
it I went to the movies last night and saw a trailer for Ballerina, which is the Anna de Armas John Wick movie, right?
Mm,
And the title for the movie comes up, and the movie is called Ballerina. That's the title of the movie. So the title comes up, and then over the title, like sort of the letters like rotate in like from nothing, like the that shutter effect, right?
mhm.
um and it says from the world of John Wick, Ballerina, and it's like, yeah, because you guys called the first movie John Wick, and
Yeah,
that's the name of the character, and then you built out this incredible universe for that, and you want to play more in that universe because it makes you a lot of money. um but how do you transition that, right? Because I think
yeah,
there was also a series about the Constantinople, about the hotel, and I think that one was also sort of titled from the world of John Wick. And you saw it with the Fast and Furious thing where Hobbs and Shaw, even having The Rock headline a movie with his character from the Fast and Furious films as the character in the title, it still wasn't enough to communicate to everybody this is a Fast and Furious movie. Like it needed to be
yeah,
Fast and Furious Hobbs and Shaw, right? I Because you and I are aficionados of franchise storytelling in the
mhm,
way that we can like follow this stuff, but I just like the average moviegoer just, it's not that they can't, they just don't care to. They're
yeah,
not paying enough attention. They're just not paying enough attention
mhm,
to connect those dots. I always think of my oldest brother, because he is um he's such a neurotypical, I look at him and it's like, this most people think that way. And he's like, he's a jock, he likes sports, likes cars. Like he's just such a prototypical male archetype. And so I just always look at him and go like, that's who they're trying to get to go to the movie. They're not trying to get us to go to the movie. They're not trying to get us to play the video game. They're trying to get him to do it because he's on the fence, right?
Yeah.
We're either in or out. So it's like I've been talking a lot about this with Star Wars, where it's like they really don't care what we think about Star Wars. What they care about are the people who are complaining about Star Wars on the internet. So
Mm,
they keep trying to make decisions to motivate those people to come back to Star Wars because those are lost dollars. That's how they see it, right? Like that's how these corporations see it.
yeah.
And I think a similar thing happens here, where it's like, well, we can't get rid of Ratchet and Clank. They are the franchise, and it's like, yeah, I think actually Insomniac's name is big enough now that they're really not, because I also like, as somebody who works with brand, it is my day job, and I consider myself an expert. I it, I often have this fight with clients where they're like, but people know our business, people know our logo, people know this or that. And then I'll say to them, like, so how are things then?
Mhm.
Are things awesome? Are you Nike? Are you Apple? Are you Microsoft?
Mm,
You're not. You guys are doing okay. You guys are struggling. Then no, nobody does know what your thing is. And the people that do, they don't care. They know your product and they're going to come with you no matter where you go. So you can change the name of your company and you just have to communicate it. You just communicate it to
mm,
those people, because the people that you don't have are, uh, they're irrelevant in this conversation, right? Like the people
right.
that aren't devotees of Ratchet and Clank. Well, what difference does it make whether or not we call it Ratchet and Clank? Then they didn't play any of the other games, so call it something else.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
worst thing that happens is that they now they take notice, right?
Mm,
And then they go, oh, is this a Ratchet and Clank game? I didn't know that. But now they're in. Now you've got them, and now maybe they'll go back and they'll play old Ratchet games.
yeah.
So I look at it and I go like, I think, established brands are important, established franchises are important, but I also think that you can bring new people in when you disrupt it, when you do something wildly different. You just have to be committed to it, right?
Yeah, and, like, when, when a young girl picks up a game that features someone like Rivet,
Mhm.
that's gonna stay with them forever, and they're the new fans. Like, that's something I will never understand about, some of these decisions that are made, is that they'll make a that they'll take a risk, and then they immediately pull back due to, like, hard criticism and whatnot. Um And it's like, "Well, hold on, like, you made new fans, like, you just
Mhm.
did. You just not looking at them. You're not actually seeing them under this, loud all these loud people."
It's such an interesting thing to me because we're watching it happen right now with Acolyte, which
Yeah,
was exactly the same as this game.
yeah,
This game is a commercial success. It's a critical success. Everybody loved it. It was on Game of the Year lists. It made tons of money, sold millions of copies, right? It was the game on the PlayStation 5 for quite a bit. Like it was really like the top tier game of like, hey, did you get PlayStation 5? You got to get the Ratchet and Clank game. I don't care if you've never played any of the other ones. I don't care if you think you don't like them. You got to get this game. It's amazing, right?
yeah.
And yet, because some people were loud on the internet, the company pulls back.
Mhm.
And Accolade is the same thing, where it's like it's the second most watched show on Disney Plus in 2024. It was critically acclaimed by a lot of people. There were definitely dissenting voices on that, but that's the difference between 2021 and 2024.
Mhm.
I it brought in a whole new fan base, and also like the standard fan base was also fed by it. Like
Yeah.
it it checked all of the boxes, but because the vitriol was loud enough to affect the share price, they canceled it.
Yeah.
Not because they were afraid of making more acolyte, which I think is one of like the sort of false conceptions that a lot of people have of that decision. That decision has nothing to do with whether or not Disney and Lucasfilm want to make more acolyte. It has to do with whether or not that decision was good or bad for shareholders.
Yep.
Canceling the show was good for the share price. They
Yep.
canceled it, and the number went up, right?
Mhm.
I have been saying this for about the last year, which is that like these companies are now announcing things to bump the share, and then they are canceling the same project also to bump the share, because
Mm.
both things move the needle. And it's short-term gain, short-term gain, short-term gain. Like that's what it has become. So any of these properties that are owned by corporations that are moved by shareholder value, just get used to it.
Yeah.
They announced a Ninja Turtles movie based on the Last Ronin comic book, which is like a really popular comic book adaptation of the Ninja Turtles. It's like this grim, dark, edgy, uh, uh, anti-hero Ninja Turtle story where one of the four brothers is still alive in the future, and the Shredder has won, and it's all edge lordy, right? Like,
Mhm.
so super popular with the comic book crowd. I guarantee you this movie would make no money, because people would not understand that it's a Ninja Turtle movie, and the people that did get it would be confused as to why it's being made in this way. And it's just like it's so narrow cast to a specific audience of I you know men who are still 15, that like I look at it and I go like, they have no, like, Paramount has no intention of making that film, absolutely none. They know that they can announce it and that the comic book was popular, so that gets picked up by the press and then bumps the share, and that they can then like release a couple of pieces of concept art that'll get people chatting about it on the internet, which will bump the share, and then they can have creative differences with the director and cancel
Mhm.
it and make money off of that too.
Yeah.
And that's cynical. It's a very cynical perspective to have, but it's just a pattern that I've recognized of like a lot of stuff gets announced now. A lot of stuff gets announced, and the more out there it is, and the more it seems like it's catering to a specific demographic, the less likely it is to actually end up coming out.
Hmm.
That's the pattern that I've recognized.
Yeah.
I don't know. Insomniac is in this Marvel thing right now. Like they're so in with the Marvel stuff. I I really wish I could remember what that other game is that they're working on. I want to say it's like Punisher or something like that, but I don't think it's Punisher.
Mm.
But it's something a little bit more like that. It's a character that's a little bit more like ground, like like street level. Not
Ah.
not quite the web slinging or Wolverine, big. Uh, uh, oh, it's Blade. That's what it is. It's Blade. Is the other game that they're working on. I,
Ah.
I, and so yeah, like, who knows when we're gonna hear anything about more Ratchet and Clank? It
Yeah.
it bums me out because I love this series so much,
Mm.
but also I don't know. Spider-Man games are really good. The Wolverine game looks like it's going to be really good, and I have full trust that a Blade game would also be awesome,
Yeah.
fighting vampires and whatnot. So, I yeah, I mean, Insomniac keeps putting out good stuff, but
Mhm.
I
Yeah. I mean, I'll replay Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart for sure. It'll go on the, the rotation of whenever I need to play something that I've played and something that's really fun and colorful and immersive, and
yeah
it really checks all my boxes. It's really great.
yeah, but I wish that Ratchet and Clank was bigger than it is. Um, they tried. They made the movie, and it didn't do anything. The movie was kind of anyways,
Yeah.
but and they remade the first game to coincide with the movie so that there was like a newer generation version that was in line with the things that they, because if you go back and you play the original game, you play the first game, it's actually very different to the extent that it's not James Arnold Taylor as Ratchet.
Yeah.
um I and the world that they inhabit actually is a very like rudimentary sort of funhouse mirror version of what Ratchet and Clank becomes. The second game gets it a little bit more concrete, but that's by the time that they get to three, to up your arsenal, like that's the one that like really cemented the tone and a lot of the lore stuff.
Right.
And I so that for like they remade that first game to be like, let's get this in line, like let's actually, because they retcon stuff in other games, and so they go back, they remake the first game, it's in line with the movie and it's in line with the stuff that they retconned in the other games. And I and they tried really hard to make Ratchet a thing, you know, on the level of like a Marvel or a Star Wars movie. And it just didn't, because the movie itself was just kind of it was kind of all over the place. But
Mhm.
I it kills me, it kills me, because I think that like there's something there with this franchise and with these characters that they could be bigger, but they've just never they've never made it out of the video game bubble,
Yeah.
you know, like into proper pop culture. It's like the average person doesn't have any familiarity with this franchise. Gamers do. They
Yeah.
know it. But even then, not everybody plays these games. Um
Yeah, if they lean out of the ten-year-old boy humor and they lean into what they've done and ripped apart with the angst and the drama and
mhm.
Rivet and Kit, then it's going to leak out. I actually did look up the fanfics.
Yeah.
For Ratchet and Rivet, there are 104 fanfics written about their relationship, which is like, that's not small, that's not nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's that's one of those things where that number might not to the average person sound like a big number, but you have to remember that that's the percentage of people who want to see that relationship, that want it so bad and have the motivation to write the fic,
Yeah,
right?
Oshimir, like, Osha and Chimere from The
Yeah.
Acolyte, we just got to 600 today, and like, that pairing is huge. That's a
Yeah.
big ship. It's canon.
Because that portion of the audience that writes the fic is like the tip of the iceberg of the people who want to see it,
Yes,
right? Because then there are people reading it, right? So if nobody wants to see it, then there's six.
oh,
Right,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, and these don't have, like, small hits, like, they have pretty big
yeah,
hits, so yeah, no, I mean, talking, like, hundreds to thousands of hits, so it's definitely a pairing that people want to see, and like I said before, like, it doesn't have to happen for me to enjoy the game, just to see more of them will be enough to kind of fuel that, that excitement that I get, so yeah, who knows,
yeah,
man?
yeah. I is there anything else about the game that you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
I think we covered, like, all the big things that I, really wanted to talk about, unless you had
Yeah.
something, I'm good.
No, no, I don't know if you guys can tell, I really, really like this franchise. It's one of the ones that kinda matters to me a lot. But I yeah, this one in particular, I think is just such a great entry in it. The only thing that I'll say that I had that this game has against it is that the platforming loses some of the stuff that I love the most. Like there's no long jump, there's no high jump in it. Like there were things that you could do that were like mainstays of the starting with the Mario 64 stuff, right? That traversal stuff that they kind of got rid of a lot of it. And so like I know like when I first picked it up, I go to try and do certain things that are in all of the other installments of the game, and it's like, oh, yeah, that's right, you can't do that in this one. Uh, I because yeah, like the long jump and the high jump are two of the sort of mainstays that, you know, I it's just I pick up a Ratchet and Clank game and I just expect to be able to do it. Um, and the funny thing is that like the button that would have done it, because it would have been like L1 L2, which would have been like the sort of like the crouch strafe button depending on which game you're playing, but it's almost always like you do that and then jump. If you're like running and then you hit that and jump, he'll do the long jump, or if you are like standing still and you hit that and then jump, he'll do the high one. And it's like Ratchet still does the beginning of that, and then there's just no, they just like omitted that ability. I think because
Hmm.
at a certain point, either character just doesn't have the helipack, right? Because
Right.
it doesn't have the helipack. Because why would Kit have the helipack? Because it's a thing that Clank gets partway through the first game, right? It's an upgrade that you find as part of the adventure. So yeah, like it's not a thing that Clank comes with standard. So Kit wouldn't have it because they never went on that adventure. So that like they
Okay.
they thought about that one too much, I think, is my take on that, is that they were like, well, but if Kit doesn't have it, then we can't give it to Ratchet and Clank because because then when you have Kit, then you it's like, what do you, it's like, no, you just needed to give Kit something similar but different, right? But I think that was just in there in amongst all of that stuff that we talked about before, where they're like, these characters have to play exactly the same at all
Yeah.
times. um yeah, I'm sure at one point that there was probably more of like a them being disparate like play styles, right? That there would be a switch back and forth, but this is the
Yeah.
game that we ended up with, so it's still pretty good, still 10 out of 10
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as I'm concerned,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
but
I
yeah.
loved, the kinda speeding around with the boots. That way of
Yeah,
travel was really nice.
the way that you can like you turn them on and you just kind of like almost strafe, like you kind of hover strafe, but
Yeah.
then if you hit that L2 three times, then they'll do like a rollerblade, you know, skating, pump the skates and get up to speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that mechanic
It's
of it.
very satisfying. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, once you get to that point and you can do that stuff, I use that in place of the long jump a lot of the time.
Yeah, as that's what I was gonna
Um,
say, yeah.
yeah, it kind of replaces it, but yeah, it's but I just really like it when those little helicopter blades come out, you know? I just love the look of it. But I that's like if that's my only complaint about this game, it means that the game is really really good. Cuz like
Exactly.
I'm just being an old man nitpicky fan of like, but what about the helipack? Um and even like to that extent, it's like it annoys me when you get to the later games and it's like he's just got the helipack, but in the first game you literally upgraded into a jetpack by the end. Like
Uh,
he's got wings and it's a rocket and all of that stuff, and you because you have a special move that you can do where you can do the butt drop with it. But again, I'm just being nitpicky. I'm just being like, these are the words of somebody who's been playing these games for 20 years. So,
yeah.
I yeah yeah. I hope
Yeah.
they put out a new one soon.
Mhm.
Because I would really love a new installment, but even if they don't, there's still lots of them to go back and play.
Yeah.
And I think on the PlayStation 5 you can literally play all of them.
Yeah.
I think that they're all like through the games catalog and all of that stuff. They're all playable. So, Deadlocked is probably the one that gets the least acclaim, and I actually think Deadlocked is a really really good game. But
Hmm.
um, they switched up a lot of stuff in Deadlocked, but I think it's worth, if people haven't played that one, go back and play that one.
Mhm.
Um, I awesome. Well, Ty, it's been a great time talking to you as always. But if people want more of you talking about things on the internet, other than going back and listening to your other episodes of Perfect 10, and they can also listen to you on Forced Perspectives on a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
I Where else can they find you on the internet?
I am firmly on Blue Sky. You can find me on there at Ty Black, and I do have my YouTube channel that I have been neglecting as of late, but it has a great catalog there of some evergreen videos if you're ever looking for that sort of thing about themes and symbols and romance. And it's called Wit and Folly. So, yep.
Yep. I can't recommend it highly enough. Everybody needs to go and watch all of Ty's videos on YouTube. They're all so good.
Thank you.
I it's like a free university course in like, you know, the theme and storytelling and archetypes and all of that sort of stuff. So if people are interested in that sort of thing, definitely go check it out.
Yeah.
I and this is exciting to me. And hopefully to the listeners. You'll be back later this season. You're already on the schedule, and we're going to talk about an absolutely bananas movie. We're going to talk about the Meg the next time that you're on. So
Yes.
I want everybody to get hyped about that because you have lots of things to say about shark movies. Um,
Yes.
there's homework to do before you guys listen to that episode. That Ty has an awesome video on Wit and Folly about the connective thread between these different shark franchises. But we're gonna do, pun intended, a deep dive on the Meg, and I am very excited because I actually think it's a really really good movie.
Yes,
I
me too.
Yeah, and so I love getting into movies that other people are like, this is just schlock, and we go like, actually, there's a lot going on here. Again, pun intended, under the surface.
Yes.
I yeah. It's a shark movie. There will be a lot of that, so that's a preview. I'll have so many puns, it'll be impossible to avoid them. Um, and as I always say, don't be a coward. Intend your puns. People
Yes.
people say no pun intended. Well, then you messed up because if it's right there, you take the shot. Um, awesome. Thank you again for hanging out and talking about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. And
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to the next episode that we record together. But that's it. That's it for this episode of Perfect 10. Thank you guys for listening to Thunderquack Perfect 10. You join the conversation on our Discord server over at thunderquack.com/Discord. And if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast service and leave a rating and review. Until next time, remember, it's not about the score, it's about the love. Stay frosty. Thunderquack Perfect 10 is hosted by me, Michael Cohen. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TQPerfect10 and join the community at thunderquack.com/Discord. This podcast is supported by listeners just like you over at patreon.com/Thunderquack. Head over there to get early access to episodes, exclusive podcasts, and more. This show is a part of the Thunderquack Podcast Network. Head over to thunderquack.com for more great shows. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.